Hey guys, thank you for tuning in with Learning Life with You with your host Alberto Castillo. As being the last episode of 2021, I really wanted to say thank you for tuning in and helping me grow and rebranding this program. I hope with these stories that we've explored this year, you guys have been inspired, motivated, and have learned from the different guests and people that I've had on the show. Um, it's because of you guys that I'm doing this here, and I just want to say and give you guys a big thank you for helping me out and just listening to me and just growing and growing with me and opening your hearts and ears with the stories I tell you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And hopefully the year 2022 will bring you more stories and awesome adventures as well. So thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. As being such, as the last episode of 2021, and maybe the next or the new episode of 2022, depending on whichever part of the world you're listening to, I did want to bring up the topic of act of kindness or kindness. I know that we're currently going through a new year and we're probably talking about new habits, new things to do, new adventures, new ideas, new jobs, new everything. But as a reminder, if you don't have this habit now, I want to tell you now, are to act kind or is to act kind. So being kind to your fellow human being. As being so, I have two stories of two acts of kindness that changed my life when I was younger and that continue to change my life as of now, as today. So, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I was at a laundromat with my mom. So it's especially so I think it was maybe in Los Angeles. Actually, I'm not completely sure. My mind might be a little bit foggy on what city it was in, but I remember it was in the city. And so it was one of those quarter laundromats where you have to like stick quarters into the machine so that way you can wash your clothes and dry your clothes. So while my mom was washing the clothes, right next to the laundromat was a video game store. And so I think it was around 5 o'clock where we were washing clothes, give or take. So while my mom was washing clothes, me being a little kid was really curious about going to the video game store. So at that time, times were different. There wasn't as much kids endangerment as there is now. So at that time, my mom let me go to walk to the video game store and look at the video games because I had a Nintendo's or no, I had a Super Nintendo at that time. And so me being the kid, I'm like, oh yay, I get to buy a new game or I get to see new games. So I walked into the video game store. Me being a little kid, the video game owner didn't really see me at all. And so I was just walking around. And while I was walking around, I ended up seeing this new game of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, for people that don't know me, or maybe you guys do now, I used to be a big fan of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and still am. So at this time, they had a Super Nintendo game right there in stock. So I had looked at it. I'm like, oh, dude, this is exciting. I get to see this. Oh my gosh, I get to buy this, right? So I couldn't really find the video game owner at the beginning, but after kind of walking around, he finally ended up going back at the counter. And so at that time, I saw him and I asked him, hey, how much is this video game? Unbeknownst to me, he was angry at me, and really just upset. And I think it's because maybe he wanted to go home and he didn't even know that he had a customer inside the video game store, yet alone a kid that possibly might not even buy this video game, so might be wasting his time. So he got angry at me and kicked me out. He didn't really even tell me the price. He was just really upset and just kicked me out. Didn't say anything. He just get out. You have to get out, and kind of just like walked me to the door. So me being a little kid, I was about to cry, right? I'll be honest with you. I was getting teary-eyed, but I was holding it away. So he kind of just like kicked me out, and so I ended up going to a laundromat by myself and walking inside and just sitting and on the seats or the chairs that they had at that time. Teary-eyed and really upset. I didn't tell my mom that the video game store owner had yelled at me. I just told her that the store was closed at the time. So she was like, okay, cool. But while that happened, I guess there were a couple teenagers across the street that had witnessed what had happened, and they were all doing their skateboarding tricks at that time. And so since they had witnessed what had happened, while I was going back into the laundromat to go just sit down and wait for my mom to finish washing the clothes, these teenagers ended up going to the video game store and talking to the video game store owner and I guess defending me and just getting him to realize that, hey, I was just a kid. There was no reason for me to get yelled at, that I just wanted to buy a video game. There's no reason to be an asshole at that time. And so I guess they came to my defense. And then, lo and behold, I didn't know any of these guys, right? These weren't any of my mom's friends or any of my mom's friends' children. They were just random teenagers that had seen what had happened and decided to get into my defense and help me out. So while they were acting in my defense and talking to the video game store owner, about 5 minutes had passed, and then the video game store owner ended up coming to the laundromat and taking me to the video game store, and with also the teenagers right there with him too, and had let me ask the question how much the video game cost. And at that moment, my mom had given me money to buy the video game, so I had already had money. And so at that moment, he's like, okay, he acted more nicely, and he kind of you could see that he was regretful and he had remorse about yelling at a little kid, because I mean, I honestly was just asking him, like, sincerely asking him how much was the game so that way I could buy it. So you could see in his face that he had remorse, and he was more kind and more forgiving. So he had told me the price, and so I had finally, with excitement, I bought the video game, really excited. And luckily the teenagers were there too, so I was really excited. And so he let me buy the video game, but at that time when he let me buy the video game too, you can say he told me sorry. So he said sorry to me and also gave me a big hug. And at that moment, I hadn't realized what that had meant until I got older, until I actually thought about the story again. But it's because, one, the act of kindness from the teenagers coming to my defense for helping me out as a kid and defending me as a kid. And two, seeing the remorse and also seeing the kindness of an adult, especially, what was he? I think he was like 40 or 50 years old at that time. Give or take, he was a little bit more older. Becoming more friendly and kind to a kid and a stranger too, and actually giving me a hug and saying sorry and being regretful. It was because of that I wanted to bring the story up, because you don't know how much of a difference that makes in a kid's life, just being kind to them and just doing one random act of kindness to them. And he didn't have to sell me the video game. He could have ignored the teenagers and kicked them out too, but because of the reasoning of both people, like, it actually had made my day, and it made me really happy. Especially because, I mean, I was just a kid. I didn't know what was really going on at the time. But in retrospect, and now realizing all the actions that had happened at the time, I realized that, yeah, this really helped me out and kind of showed me how to be kind to other people. And that's one story with two acts of kindness and putting together, right? And the second story of act of kindness was when I was also around 5 or 6 years old. I think this is when I was 6 years old. My mom and I had gone on the Greyhound bus to go to Los Angeles while she was to take care of some immigration or citizenship papers and documentation. So if you guys have never gone to that through any of that process, it's really long and tedious and sometimes tiring. So what ended up happening is that my mom and I ended up going to a Greyhound bus, and we got there around like maybe 3 hours or 4 hours after getting to the Greyhound bus. And so we were already running late, so we're running across the street of downtown to get to the immigration station, so that we would make on time to the appointment for my mom's immigration officer. While we're running, obviously being awake for like 4 or 5 hours already, I was kind of hungry, and this is like early in the morning. It was already 9 o'clock at that time, and I was hungry, and I was kind of like whining and a little bit crying to my mom. Hey, I'm hungry, mom. But she's like, we have to go, mijo. I can't stop. I have to meet this. And I'm like, me trying to understand. I guess I was trying to be more understanding, which I understand because my mom had to deal with. I mean, she was practically a single mother for the most part. We had my dad, but my dad was an asshole. We won't get into that, right? But my mom being practically a single mother, she like had to take care for a lot of different things. So she also had to go get her citizenship documents too, on with her citizenship or with her immigration officer. So while we're running across downtown, while I'm kind of being whining and saying I'm hungry, we ended up having to stop at a crossroad or a crosswalk and wait for the red light to turn green. So while the red light was turning, or while we were waiting for the red light, there was actually a homeless guy right there listening to me and seeing me cry and telling my mom that I'm really, really hungry. Can we stop to eat? While she's telling me, no, we can't, mijo, we can't. But the interesting part about this homeless guy is that he was in a wheelchair, and he was maybe about 40 years old. And so he comes up to me and my mom and offers me a piece of pastry. It was a blueberry pastry. So he gives it to me and says, here you go. I know you're hungry. Here you go. You can eat it. And I was like, at first, like, I was like surprised because, again, I didn't know this guy. And lo and behold, he's in a wheelchair. He's kind of a little bit shirtless and homeless, right? And at that time, I didn't know what homeless people really were. It wasn't until like at the age of 10 or 11 that I realized what homeless people were at that time. But he offered me a pastry, and he also offered my mom a pastry too, so that we can go through our day and go to the immigration office not hungry. And I think what the homeless guy noticed was that my mom was also struggling. And I think he can also see in her eyes that it was hard for her to say no to her kid that was like 6 years old, really, really hungry, having to run into the immigration office, and also being a single mother. Because again, I think you could tell in the eyes how people are and the struggles that they're going through sometimes. It's all in the eyes, in my opinion. So this homeless guy really just came up to a call of action to help another human being, even though he himself might have needed help too. And it wasn't until later on throughout the years that I realized that that act of kindness and that action had really helped me out a lot and help in paying it forward. But again, I tell you this story because this homeless man didn't have to give me food. He was already hungry probably himself, and he decided to help out a single mother and his child because they were hungry as well. If that doesn't give you hope in humanity, I'm not sure what does, right? But that in itself is like the hope that I saw when I was young. And the reason why I tell you these two stories isn't because, oh, these are awesome stories to tell you, or oh, because like that's great that happened to me. I tell you these stories because we're going into a new year, and if we're going to build up habits, the new habit that we have to build up is acting kind, being kind to your fellow human being, helping each other out, helping your fellow neighbor when they're in need. Because now more than ever, with the political agenda, with where everything being so polarized, hatred going on, racism, segregation, internment camps, where you believe it or not, immigration internment camps, you know, silencing people, right? People seeking asylum, wars going on. The best that we can do right now to help each other out or to fix shit is to help each other out, to forget about what's going on in a sense, right? About what your background is, but to see each other as one race, which is the human race. And that's what we really have to get into. If we're going to survive on this earth, we have to really help each other out. And so my call to action to you and my challenge to you heading into this new year, the year 2022, is to do one act of kindness at least once a day. If you can't do it once a day, do it 3 times a week. If you can't do it 3 times a week, do it 1 time a week. But the point is to do a random act of kindness, because we need more good people out there to do something good than shitty people to continue doing shit that's bad. And that's my challenge for you today. And I hope this helps you out. And just act kind, because we need you guys. And if you're listening to this podcast or watching this in any platform that you're watching this on, you guys know that my message is always to help each other out, to think about each other, because we are a collective as humans. And if we're just destroying each other, what hope do we have for our newer generations? So be the change that you want to see and that you want to be. That's my goal for you next year. Nothing else, whether it's fitness or anything like that, that's your prerogative. But my goal for you as my listener and as my audience is to do a random act of kindness at least once a day, or if not, once a week. Because 1, it will help out. 2, it creates a ripple effect where other people will help each other out. And 3, people will create that act of kindness or that ripple effect by paying it forward. And that's it. Whenever somebody wants to pay you back for that act of kindness, just say pay it forward to somebody else. That's the only way that we're going to help each other out and create that ripple effect that we need to see now more than ever. So change that habit of being mean, be kind, help your fellow human being, and just love each other. That's it. That's all we need. So coming into the year 2022, help each other out, be more kind, be more loving, be more understanding, and be forgiving. Because that's what we need. No more hatred. I know that's a little bit hippie of me to say, because let's be honest, there's always going to be hatred. But if we can be the majority of people helping each other out, we can probably defeat it, guys. I love you. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the year 2022 and started off well. Remember, if there's one habit that you need to build, or if there's one habit that you can continue on doing, is being kind to each other. And that's all I ask from you guys, is to be kind. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. Peace out. Enjoy your new year, 2022 or 2022. And I will see you next year, guys. Thank you. Peace out. Much love. Please hit subscribe and recommend this if you like this. Bye.